In this video, we're going to be going into the gory details of how I lost 95% of my net worth in the space of 72 hours and how I used this and some of the other darkest moments in my life to propel me to the most empowering moments in my life, where today I'm doing work that is aligned with my purpose. I'm doing work that helps clients change their lives and I get paid well to do it. So getting into this, how I went from 25K in debt and unemployed to doing over 30K a month as an online coach. Now, if you don't know already, Matt Conway is my name and I help online men's coaches, that's dating coaches, mindset coaches, relationship coaches. I help them scale their business, implementing some of the systems and strategies you're gonna see in this video. So whether you're an online coach or a business owner, stick around to the end of this video because there's gonna be business lessons and insights that will help you get your business to the next level. You're either forged in the fire or you're fractured by the flames. Now, if you're an online coach, I think this quote will resonate because if you help guys in their dating life, it's most likely that you too once struggled with this aspect of your life. Now, personally, I was bullied in school for years, right? And this isn't a sob story. This is to highlight something. If you think back to certain early life experiences, you will probably begin to be able to see how these things set you on a current path, the path that you're on right now. So you can look back at moments like this and you can be proud of yourself. You can kind of tap into that warrior spirit, right? I was bullied in school for years. For years, teachers would sit by and do nothing. It was verbal abuse from like pretty much the entire class, right? But I would pick out the ringleaders and I would stick up for myself. I would fight back and I'd get suspended multiple times for doing so. And I look back at that and I'm grateful that these things happened. Because ultimately these things, right, not relying on a teacher or a boss to set me right or set things right and make it safe, right? Having to look after for myself, right? Some of these things, right, these are very deeply transformative moments, right? So I'm just highlighting that there's probably these moments in your own life that you can look back at and you can be like, fuck yeah, you can tap into that warrior spirit. Think of like 13, 14-year-old Matt that was sticking up for himself, right? You can think back in your difficult moments and be like, he didn't give up, right? And neither should you, right? But ultimately these moments, right, led me to get into martial arts and jiu-jitsu, and you can see some photos of jiu-jitsu and jiu-jitsu competitions and things here. But a little bit of backstory, right? From those moments in school and things, right? Social conditioning, etc. I was a shy kid, right? It wasn't my natural disposition, but from the social conditioning, I was like shut down. And I think my brother picking up on that, he saw it, right? And he gave me the book, The Game, when I was 17, right? And if you know about the book, The Game, and Neil Strauss, and pick up artistry and cold approach, etc., you know that can be some fucking life-changing shit. And it absolutely was for me. But not just in terms of social life. There's some business insights that I'm going to reveal to you now in a moment, which, if you're struggling to grow your business, if you're struggling to attract clients, there's going to be some business insights from that book that you're going to be able to apply right away. And not just the insights, I'm going to give you the strategies, the step-by-step to help you start attracting clients right away. Start signing clients, sealing the deal, taking them home, and growing your business. So if you don't know, right, I studied politics and things in university. It was a 3-year degree. It took me 4.5 years. I was completely lost. To be honest, if I was braver at the time, I should have just quit, okay? But leaving that, I was lost, right? I fell into a job at FedEx in Dublin, right? It was a sales role. And I remember somebody I was shadowing at the time, he was like my mentor. He said, oh, you're a natural. First day on the phones, it felt like my hand was shaking, right? I was so nervous. Initially, that job, right, it felt like growth, right? It was something new, right? Ultimately, I'm grateful for it because it was my first endeavor into sales. But a little bit over a year into that role, it just became a new comfort zone, right? And I was smoking weed, a lot of weed, and listening to hip hop. And the two positive things are jiu-jitsu and crypto, right? I was just taking all of my money and spending on jiu-jitsu gear, training, nutrition, smoking a lot of weed, and putting all the rest into crypto. I was stacking Ethereum, Bitcoin, XRP, and this is like 2017, right? So this is early days, right? And I made quite a return. And frankly, like my ego got a little bit out of control and I quit my 9 to 5. I made a pretty rash decision at the time. I quit that 9 to 5 and I got into e-commerce, right? And I was like set on e-commerce domination. And this is the business I started, Unbroken Athletic Care, and that's Michael Chandler with the product, right? Michael Chandler, the UFC fighter, with the injury prevention product that I used to sell. So it was these like bands. Also, I used to sell things like fat grips to get stronger grips for jiu-jitsu, right? And MMA, etc. Okay, and it was good while it lasted, right? I got this like taste of freedom, right? You're going to see this later on, but I got this taste of freedom. I was able to travel, right? I remember my first ever Shopify sales, the bell going off. It felt like euphoria. But ultimately, I did always want to coach. And in 2018, ad costs increased. E-commerce is a game of margins, of thin margins. And as more and more competitors joined the platform, the cost of advertising went up and up and up, and my margins went down and down and down. And as a result, right, I had to go back to the corporate 9 to 5, right? And I felt like a corporate sellout. I got a good job, right? I was working for Google NBS, so Google headquarters in Europe is in Dublin. And I was working new business sales for Google Ads. And frankly, that was a job that was fun, right? That was a 9 to 5 that was fun. Robert Greene in the 48 Laws of Power, I believe, talks about a live time versus dead time. And two people, they can be given the same 25-year sentence, but one person comes out at the end a hardened criminal. The other guy gets out in 5 years because he studied to become a lawyer and he beats the case, right? So Robert Greene talks about making things like this. If you're in a 9 to 5 right now, make it a live time, be engaged, right? Sharpen your skills, learn sales, learn copywriting, learn digital marketing, right? Plan your fucking exit strategy, invest in mentors, read the books, right? And in this time, like Google, on one level, it's a great company to work for. Okay, there's a lot of benefits. There's a gym and the facilities are incredible. There's food, there's breakfast, there's snacks, there's great hydro, there's everything. But I always, since reading The 4-Hour Workweek at the age of 19, right, I dreamt of making that online internet money, right? Traveling the world, training martial arts and feeling like a real life James Bond. And that's why I felt like a corporate sellout, right? But I knew it wasn't my soul, like just like when I was getting bullied, right? I didn't accept it, right? I knew it was just a temporary thing and I was determined, right? And I was determined to constantly stretch beyond my comfort zone. And if you're watching this video, you're probably the same, right? You're probably just like that. But in order to do so, in order to make that change, right, there is risk and you've got to make a decision. But sometimes, even if you're being a little bit passive, even if you're not making a decision, the world, God, the universe, it forces you to make a decision. The pandemic hit, right, in 2020, and I was working from home and I actually reconnected with an old mentor and I started working as a closer. And I closed my first ever sales call for 3K, sorry. It was an English guy named Sam. And yeah, 2 months in, I was making more every week than I would at a month in Google. So I quit, right? And again, I got this taste of freedom now, though, as an online closer. And I was traveling around the world. This is in Sintra, right? In Portugal, that's Mexico, that's the Colosseum, that's the Canary Islands, that's Capri in Italy, that's somewhere else in the Canary Islands. I lived in the Canary Islands for 4 months. I lived in Naples and Sicily for 6 months. And I traveled to Mexico. On one level, this was an incredible time. It was an incredible sense of freedom. Right, and I felt like this Mr. International, the James Bond character, it felt like it was happening. I was learning Italian, I was learning Spanish, right, eating great food, seeing all these incredible places, dodging lockdowns, right, because this was COVID time and Ireland was fully clown world, right? It was all perfect until it wasn't, right, until reality set in. I was working as a closer, commission-based closer, by the way, so you eat what you kill. And if you don't get calls, you can't close. The business was heavily reliant on ads. And he went through some similar challenges that I went through when I was doing e-commerce, right? The ads run dry. The call volume drops. I went from having 2-3 calls a day to being lucky if I had 2 calls a week. I realized that my livelihood was completely dependent on somebody else. And dependency was the whole reason I despised the 9 to 5 in the first place. Except this time it was worse, right? I didn't have a salary, right? I was a commission-based closer, and further, I had a fallout with my mentor, right? Law 1 in the 48 laws of power, right? Law fucking 1 of all the laws, okay? Google it. So I had a bright idea, right? I was looking always to stretch and to grow, and I wanted to do coaching, and I wanted to start my own business. And I had already worked in sales for 5+ years at this time. I had closed over 5 million in deals for Google, FedEx, and as a high ticket closer. So I decided I'd make a course. And that, as you'll see, is like the number one error. If you're thinking about making a course, don't make a course. Don't launch a school community. Don't do any of that shit, as you're about to see. Okay, it took me 2 months of planning, shooting the content, editing it, organizing it, building the funnels, everything. It took me so much time. And then I started running ads. And that was error number 2. I tried going it all alone. I thought I knew better, right? I was a fucking digital marketing consultant for Google, for God's sake, right? So I thought I knew how to run the ads and do all this stuff. And I had spent tens of thousands in the past successfully building my e-commerce company. So I thought I knew what to do, right? So I funnel hacked a few competitors, a few big guys out there in the space. I launched ads. I had all these different variables, all these different funnels. I split tested everything, and I ran through over $5,000 testing, modeling what I thought worked, but I got 0 results. And I felt stuck, right? I'd ran the ads. I was doing value, posting consistently every single day. I was doing everything Gary Vee said, right? But nothing worked, right? I built a low ticket intro product, a lead magnet, funnel, email sequence, all of it. And the only engagement came from 1 or 2 supportive friends. The market had changed. See, back in 2017, 2019, right, I knew ads could work, right? I'd made ads work for me in the past. And I knew, right, that at one point in time, virality and posting content, posting value, it was viable. But today in 2025, and even at this point in like 2022, yeah, posting and praying, that's not a strategy. Because I'd been posting for over a year, and you probably have too. And that hasn't worked. And it didn't work for me either, right? But then I had a realization, and this is a realization that you've probably had, or you definitely should have had if you're a dating coach and you advise guys to do cold approach pickup, right? I had a realization about business and how that ties into game and pickup too. And so I found a mentor, and I invested 10K on Thursday, the 10th of June, 2022, right? And what happened next threw me for a fucking wobble. In June 2022, Celsius Network, the leading crypto platform, paused all withdrawals. Right? I had my entire crypto portfolio on that platform, and everything was decimated. It was all gone. Right? I went to bed one night and it was fine. There was a little bit of this news about Stellar Luna. I didn't pay much heed to it. I woke up the next day and I couldn't get access to my funds. I'd invested 10K with my mentor, Jose, 2 days before. And then by Sunday, I had lost access to everything. And I lost 95% of my net worth in 3 days, right? Going from having a 30K safety net to 5K and 0 income, right? And I remember the day so vividly. I was with my ex-girlfriend at the time, and I was fucking panicking. I was in the apartment and I felt like walls were just closing in on me. And I felt like I could fucking hardly swallow a breath. I said, I need to get some air. Let's go for a walk. Rarely and oddly enough, it was actually a beautiful day in Dublin, and descend from the apartment and we're walking over to the park. And I don't know if it was the sun like refracting or hitting me in the pineal gland or something, but I got this moment of positivity because my girlfriend at the time, she asked me, what are you going to do? Are you going to ask Jose for the money back? And that thought just did not even cross my mind. The only thing that crossed my mind was I really need to make this fucking shit happen. And this is where this book here comes in. Cold approach pickup, right? The cliff notes, right? You can read the book, it's interesting, but approach women, right? There's a right and wrong way to do it. People think that it's cringe. Those people are just afraid because everybody goes to the gym, they get their hair cut, they brush their teeth because they want to be attractive to the opposite sex. So if they're not willing to just approach them, right, it's ultimately, if they're single, it's because they're afraid. Right? There's no two ways about it. Just like people are afraid to approach women, people are afraid to do DMs, right? Think of the comparison here, right? It's the exact same. People want clients. People are posting content to get clients. They're doing all this stuff because they want clients. The only reason you wouldn't do DMs, now there is a right and a wrong way to do it, but the only reason people wouldn't do the DMs is because they're afraid or they don't know what to say, just like with the dating analogy here. Okay, so I started taking massive action. I started doing hundreds of DMs, hundreds of approaches a day. No more posting and praying. I realized that conversations lead to conversions. Right, one case study can really change your life. This is my first ever client, Jean, right? Jean Garrian. And in 90 days, he went from doing 0 to doing 20K a month, right? Jean invested about 10K to work with me and turned that investment into 240K per year plus freedom. He was working a finance job in London, right? But ultimately that's a 2,000% return on investment. So that's a great investment for Jean, but more so for me, because I've leveraged this one case study, and this is what you should do as well, right? You should get client results and then leverage those client results, because client results beget more client results, and you can just see how this flywheel works, right? People want to work with authorities and people who have proof, right? People want to work with experts. So when you make a sale, right, if you embrace win-win thinking, right, if you make a sale and really deliver results, go above and beyond for that client, you can then capture all of this proof that we're about to see here, right? You get one client result, right? Client results beget more client results. You make sales, they get results, right? You deliver those results, you enhance your credibility, and this flywheel just spins and you get more client results. And as a result of those client results, you become more attractive, right? You start taking action, implementing outreach. This is the seductive marketing concept that I teach clients. In essence, just like in a dating context, yeah, we want to be attractive, but ultimately we can't post selfies and think that women are going to come and hit on us, right? As a man, yeah, by all means be attractive, right? But we've got to take action. It's the exact same thing. Posting and praying is not a marketing strategy. You've got to get out there and embrace the idea that conversations lead to conversions. You've got to do strategic outreach following a proven DM strategy to get clients, right? And many years later, this is the sort of thing we do now. You can pause the video and zoom in, but this hybrid outbound acquisition system is responsible. This is one of my setters' calendars, right? And you can see 5th of March to the 13th, how many calls just he gets booked in, okay? This is the hybrid outbound acquisition strategy that we teach to other clients, right? So this stuff works, right? Whether you're struggling with your lead gen, whatever your challenge is right now, if you're struggling with your marketing or your lead gen or your sales and conversions, right? Look at some of these client results. See, Matt Ends here in 90 days went from 2K a month to 70K cash months consistent. Implementing these elements here, we got his closing rate to 70%. The average in high ticket coaching is about 10%. Matt was closing at 70. In his first week, 14K in cash collected. Okay, Scott went from 0 to 10K a month. These interviews, they're all on YouTube. Go watch them. Right? Scott didn't even have a high ticket offer before working with me. He'd never done a sales call for his business, right? And ultimately we've gotten setters placed, right? This guy is scaling rapidly right now. Anton, 0 to 100K per month, okay? Implementing these processes and systems. Okay, Zach is another client that had never taken a high ticket sales call in his entire life. 6 weeks into the program, 23K cash collected, 70% closing rate, okay? If you can solve these 3 areas, okay, so this is if you've got a solid mindset, if you have that warrior mindset, if you solve these 3 issues, 20K months are a guarantee, okay? So if you have an offer that retains, right? So if you have an offer that makes people so happy after 1 month that they want to stick around for the rest of the payment plan, or if you have an offer that's so solid that when they come in for your 3-month high ticket package, they renew for another 6 months, right? When you have an offer that is 10 out of 10 like that, it makes so much easier to scale your business. But what you've got to understand is you could have a great offer and you could have great marketing, right? You could be implementing the HOAS system that we use, or you could have a massive following on Instagram. If your conversion cycle, if your sales process is broken, your business just doesn't grow. Now, if you're watching this video, I would guess that either, right, you're strong on sales, but you're struggling to get enough calls, or, right, you have a big audience, but you just don't know how to convert that into high ticket paying clients. Now, my personal mission here is to scale 30 men's coaches to 30K months and beyond in 2025. Right? Why is this my mission? Because I've been a buyer in this space, in the dating space, right? This shit changed my life, but further, right? Like it said here, strong men create good times and good times create weak men. Okay, and there's a bit of an agenda, right? Playfully, the soy boy agenda. But if you're a men's coach, whether you're a dating coach, a mindset coach, right, whatever it is, you're encouraging men to take radical responsibility, while the agenda is promoting victim mentality, right? So you are in this fight and you're playing a role here, okay? And if you're one of these guys, right, if you're driven, if you're a warrior, if you're high testosterone, mission driven, highly coachable and ready to commit, get yourself booked in on a scaling blueprint call 1-to-1 with me, where we'll implement, right, we'll do a audit of exactly where you are right now. We'll audit your sales process, your closing rate, your pre-call process, how your warming leads up before the call. We'll audit exactly who it is you're really looking to target and how best to position yourself, how best to craft your message, right? How best to put your offer out there so that it magnetizes the right kind of prospect. And then further, we'll look at your current call volume and how many calls you're needing to really grow your business. And we'll start implementing or looking to implement the systems that I've talked about here. Right, we'll look at how you can implement the seductive marketing strategy, how you can implement the hybrid outbound acquisition system to get highly qualified prospects booking in your calendar every single day. So if you're one of these kind of guys, right, if you're a men's coach, if you're highly coachable, if you're ready to commit time, money, and energy to making incredible things happen, if you're willing and ready to go beyond your comfort zone to make incredible things happen, get yourself booked in. Guys, this has been a little bit about my story and some of the stuff that I've overcome, right, and that I've been through. So if you faced any big challenges, even if right now you're not in a position to commit financially, commit to yourself, right? And even if you're struggling right now, embrace what we talked about right here, okay? That you're either going to be forged in the fire or fractured by the flames, okay? So that's what I want to leave you with here. Whatever it is you're going through, right? It's how you approach it. It's your mindset towards those things that are going to dictate what happens next. Okay, so back yourself, right? Commit, right? Time, money, and energy, right? If you don't have a lot of money right now, you've got to compensate with energy and time. Okay, but fully commit to making this shit happen. Okay, because you'll thank yourself in the future when you do. Okay, peace.